Senator Ludlam.
Thanks, Mr Deputy President. I understand that suspension of standing orders is not a trivial matter, and it's not something that the Greens would engage in lightly, but I was still flabbergasted to hear government spokespeople deny that there was a sense of urgency around a debate such as this. It is an urgent matter when the Prime Minister unilaterally commits the ADF to a conflict on the other side of the world, where the strategic imperatives are completely unclear, the success conditions are unclear, the legality is unclear. We heard Senator Abetts's interpretation of the legal basis upon which Australian aviators and potentially other personnel would be deployed over Syria, and find it completely unsatisfying. I don't think we should simply rush into this expanded deployment. When we were debating these matters 12 months ago, Senator Christine Milne, as Leader of the Australian Greens, warned of mission creep, warned of an open-ended military commitment into a complex and violent situation on the other side of the world, which Australia bears some responsibility for opening up. If we heard the Prime Minister or anyone on his front bench, anybody who was in Cabinet in 2003, when we signed off sight unseen on an illegal and unjustified invasion of Iraq, even a moment of acknowledgement that that was a catastrophic strategic mistake, it would be easier to bear some of those who file in here today and condemn the Greens for daring to question the strategic resolve or the strategic brilliance of those who continue to deploy foreign forces into these theatres of wars on the other side of the world. Retired General Peter Gratian, who was the CDF from 1987 to 1993, points out the following in an open letter. Involvements in airstrikes would be inviting disaster. He goes on to point out there is no UN cover for that particular operation. I believe that will give them a strong indication that it would be illegal. Prime Minister Tony Abbott, in an interview that he did, I think last week, was asked what is the legal basis for an Australian deployment into the Syrian civil war. And he pointed out, and I'll paraphrase, this is not a direct quote, Daesh does not respect international borders, why should we? And I found that extraordinary, that he would choose Daesh as our benchmark for the international rule of law. I find that suggestion somewhat sick when we consider that involvement in illegal wars potentially exposes our service personnel and those who direct them into those theatres of conflict to international sanctions. That is as serious as this can get. Syria is one of the most dangerous places in the world, and I acknowledge the Prime Minister's point in his press conference that Syrian civilians, for whom this action is arguably justified, caught between the hammer and the anvil, makes it sound as though there are only two sides to a simple conflict, and that is simply not the case. I quote Peter Harling of the International Crisis Group, hardly an organisation of non-violent practitioners. Nonetheless, he said the following: Islamic State has prompted a response that combines all of the ingredients necessary to make it stronger. Western over-the-horizon military intervention, a regional arms race as a variety of countries rush to provide money and weapons to improvised proxies whose factional and sometimes sectarian agendas further degrade decaying state institutions and exacerbate social fault lines, and growing repression of civil liberties and empowerment of backward-looking but formerly secular power structures. That is the disaster that Prime Minister Tony Abbott has waded into. And I understand Senator Abetts's alarm and concern when we raise the fact that the Daily Telegraph reports this morning, and I mean it's the Daily Tele, so you can't take it too seriously, but they do have very good contacts inside the Prime Minister's office. We frequently see these national security announcements mysteriously leaked out of Cabinet or the National Security Committee, saying the Prime Minister wants somebody bombed by Saturday. How are we supposed to take that kind of information when it's put onto the front page of a Murdoch tabloid? And the ALP, and have noted Senator Conroy's comments and those of the Leader of the Opposition in the House, wants the government to make a statement on the long-term strategy, again paraphrasing an appropriate parliamentary discussion. Wouldn't the time for that be before the deployment rather than after? We are rushing straight into the same kind of situation that was signed off by the Prime Minister unilaterally at the behest of the United States government in 2003 that ripped open these sectarian tensions across Iraq. Have we learned nothing from history? This parliament is the place for that debate to happen, and now is the time for it to occur.